This is your girl Annette, and we are sharing the stories and experiences of Peace Corps volunteers. So the Peace Corps is a service opportunity for motivated change makers to immerse themselves in a community abroad, working side by side with local leaders to tackle the most pressing challenges of our generation. The mission of Peace Corps is to promote world peace and friendship by fulfilling three goals. One, to promote the people of understanding, the people of interested countries in meeting their needs for trained men and women. Two, to promote a better understanding of Americans on the part of the people served. And three, to promote a better understanding of other people on the part of Americans. And today we're going to be basically completing our third goal. And today we have Alba Arana,
yes.
Arana, oh, I got it right. And she is going to be sharing her experience. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am well. I don't know, a little tongue-tied. Like I think I'm gonna need another cup of coffee because I don't know what's going on this morning, but I'm excited. Like I'm like pumped for today for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited too. I think there's, when you come back from your service, I don't think people really want to sit and listen to you talk about like all these crazy experiences that you have. So whenever I get the chance, I'm like, yes, I want to talk about this.
And you are absolutely right. My family, when I start to pull out any of this stuff, they're like, no. What are you doing? And I'm like, it's just one album. Let me just share one album. And they're like,
it's just one story, just one.
Yes, they're like, don't encourage her. Where exactly did you serve? And can you introduce yourself?
Yes, so my name is Alba Arana. I am originally from Los Angeles. I'm currently living in Phoenix, Arizona, and I served in the Dominican Republic along the border of Haiti and the DR. I served as an education volunteer, as a Spanish literacy promoter. So I was in a very small village up in the mountains. It was about a 200 people village. And I was working with a lot of teachers, teacher training, youth groups, the local church, and just doing a lot of Spanish literacy. The DR is one of the only posts that actually does work in the native language. So most of us in the, who were in the language area, so like education area, were doing actual work with the local language. So that was very unique for me, especially for me who I'm a native speaker. My family's from Guatemala and Honduras. And so like it was, I felt like I could actually really connect to the people and connect to the work that was being done. So
that is awesome. I didn't even know we had programs like that. Like you just said that, and I'm like, Spanish literacy.
Yeah,
that is so cool. Like, and that connection to your community. One, was the Spanish different than the Guatemalan Spanish, or were there just some, like the same thing we have here, like there were different dialects that people would use, but in general you were still speaking?
So the Spanish, it was, I can understand, it was very easy for me to understand, but there was definitely a difference in culture. My family, my Guatemalan family, our side of the family is a lot more conservative and a little bit more reserved. My family in general, though, they're like lots of fun and super open-minded and just like a whole riot. So like that part of the DR wasn't really an adjustment because everybody was just so much fun. Like when I got my site placement interviews, they were like, so what kind of things would you like to see in your site? I was like, just give me somewhere I can dance and somewhere I can like watch telenovelas, because that's one thing that like I watch with my family. And so like that's what they did. They like put me somewhere I could dance and just somewhere I could watch telenovelas, and like I was like good to go. And so and the Spanish was a little bit different. So like there were certain words that I mean completely different, the opposite as like to, like my Honduran and Guatemalan. But even like, because Honduran has a very heavy African descent. So like there was a lot of similar dishes and food. And so like I would send pictures to my dad and it's like, look, whenever I told you I would never eat plantains ever again, now I eat them every single day here. And so he would just be like, oh my God, that's so funny, that's so interesting. Because even for them, they don't understand like the interconnection of culture with other Caribbean or Latin American countries.
Right.
So for even for them, it was kind of like, oh wow, like the Dominicans and Caribbeans like also eat fried plantains,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. Like you know this? Like you're
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
candy is awesome.
And even for Dominicans too, they were like, oh, but like, you know what this is called? Or like, oh, their biggest mind blown was like when I was dancing, like, oh, but that's an American who can dance, you know? Like, like
yes, some of us have some moves.
Yeah, some of us, you know, like we got the little Latin swing and stuff. So that was fun. Yeah.
That's cool. So do you currently, and I know this is typically one of the questions I ask later on, but Spanish literacy, is that something that you're still doing now, like to date?
I am not. I'm actually working as an administrator at a university. So when I came back from Peace Corps, I came straight to get my master's in higher ed. Because a lot of the work that I did in service in education was getting a lot of the youth into college and just kind of having them see how education can benefit their future. And so that's kind of what I really became passionate about in Peace Corps, and then just ended up deciding to pursue that as my master's when I came back to the US. And so now, after completing my master's in higher ed, I'm working at University of Arizona. And so I'm just working that. I'm working there, but it kind of, you know, it does translate because I do get to work with some Latino parents, you know, and kind of supporting them in understanding their students' college process in Spanish and their language. So it does translate, and I speak Spanish all the time with my family. It's my first language.
Okay.
So I do that no matter what.
Okay.
I'm not specifically working in literacy,
right.
you know, in schools, but I'm still, it's like my Spanish it's
well, not for
what
nothing.
I use every day.
Everything that we do learn, initiate in our Peace Corps service, I think all of it connects to where we end up being. And as an administrator, like that is huge, because you do have the ability to make an impact on your students, and having that addition or that language to be able to support all of your students is pretty awesome. Was that one of the programs that you initiated when you were in service, or something that they asked for once you arrived? What were some of your projects?
So some of the projects, so my site was a brand new site. So I was the very first volunteer there.
Oh, that's hard.
Yeah, and so they didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. My project packet pretty much said, you know, just like work with literacy programs that have already been established. So like my host sister was running like a literacy project with adults. And the school director was also like, oh, I could really use some help. You know, there's a lot of kids that are falling behind. So there was a little bit of everything, and no actual direction of like, this is specifically where we want you to, you know, they just kind of identified their needs. And so I kind of just went with the kinds of things that I really wanted to, the other way around. I just kind of went with like what other people were like, oh, I think we really need a youth group, or I think because our community had a lot of high school students, and because we didn't have like electricity or things like that, like the youth were just very bored. So like we didn't have like basketball courts or a park or anything. So they were just kind of like after school, they were just like hang around and do nothing. Okay. And so I utilized my background in like after school programming, and just kind of started building up like an after school, like some youth tutoring programs, and just kind of get this, like the youth get like really excited about like being mentors to the younger kids. And so that's how we started. And then after that, I got kind of like really stressed out. So then I remember one of like the teachers saying that we didn't have like a preschool program. So I started utilizing like just painting and drawing and like things, projects like that were just like super hands-on, and
Right.
started like bringing all the kids together that were like preschool area. And we would like meet in the local chapel, and we were all just like paint and draw and talk about like, so it became kind of like a plain little session for me as well. And like the kids started learning. So then I started like the first like kind of unofficial preschool program in the community. And so it was all of just like taking the suggestions from the community. I never really went in there being like, oh, I think this is what we should do. It was more of like, okay, like if someone wants to help me with this, I'm willing to take it on. You know, and I didn't really want to be like, oh, I think this is what we need, because, and I tried it once, I think, and it just failed because it was like me pushing everything. And people are just being like, that's not really what we want, or like not really being excited about it. So after that, I was like, okay, like I'm done like pushing anything. Like unless someone is like, I'm going to work with you on this and I'm going to take the initiative, I'm not going to do anything. So my project's really based on youth development and preschool literacy. So like pre-first grade literacy. And then a couple of like my region, and like, because usually for Peace Corps DR, they put you in clusters. So there's about like 6 other volunteers around you within like at least a 2-hour like driving or you know, away distance. So we are all in one region, in working with one district, one school district. And so volunteers before us had started this really cool regional spelling bee. And so like we would also collaborate with each other and with the teachers doing like the regional spelling bee. So that was like another project that I will work with the students who like really advanced, who were like really excited, really good in school. So that was like the other thing. I also had like a pen pal program. So I connected with a US teacher who was teaching their kids about like Latin America and the Caribbean and Spanish and all this stuff. So they would send us letters in Spanish. So his kids would practice Spanish, and we would send him responses in English so that our students could practice their English.
That is awesome.
So we did some of that stuff, and just like other, you know, just random things that would come up. But for me personally, I was very busy, and a lot of it was I was lucky to have a very motivated host family. My host sister worked at the local school, so she was like super highly motivated as well to like get all the other teachers on board. All the other teachers were also younger as well, and right out of like school, and had all this like background information on teaching and pedagogies and all this stuff. So they were also like very excited for me being there.
That's awesome. This is at a site that was new anyway.
Yes. Yeah, so there was like no past expectations. So we were all just kind of like, oh, okay, well, this works, this doesn't, like, you know, so I think that really helped. And me being able to speak Spanish and being able to connect with them and kind of pick up on like cues and the culture was very helpful, and like really made a difference.
Okay, that is awesome. So if you could change or improve anything about your service, what would you change or improve?
I don't think I would change anything, honestly, or improve, just because it's the experience. I think like you got to go into Peace Corps just like having no expectations. If you go in there expecting that you're going to change the world and change everybody's like lives, like you're going to be very disappointed. And you're going to have very sad days.
And you're right.
Yeah, like, so if you just go in there like very with very low expectations, you just every day is gonna surprise you. And I think one of the hardest things is because in our like US everyday life, we have a routine, right? Like
Yeah.
we go 9 to 5. We are expected to like be here, we're expected to be there. We know what's going to happen in the next 3 months, like, or stuff like that. And Peace Corps is nothing like that. Like, you know, we had strikes during like school days. So we would spend like 2 weeks without even seeing the kids or even seeing one teacher show up to work. Or you're supposed to have full like school days, but like
Yeah.
the teacher would be like, oh, look, there's a blue dark sky. Like it's going to rain. Let's go. School's over. It's 1 p.m. Like school's done. Let's go, everybody. And so like, you know, or some days were just like harder and better than others. And, or you would literally spend a whole day sitting under a mango tree, just like talking to your teachers.
Yeah.
And all that is part of your service. And so, which is completely unconventional on a daily, you know, here in the US. So that like, it's all those little things that they don't kind of, you know, they tell you like, oh, we're prepared to be like, wow, not running water and like no electricity and all these things, but they don't tell like, and be prepared to not do absolutely anything, you know, like, and that's okay. Or I don't know, just like things like that, that you're just like, okay, you
No,
know,
that
like,
was perfect and well said, because you're correct. Like there are volunteers who actually probably leave early because they don't understand that piece of kind of being still and just sitting underneath the mango tree. And some of the older people sit there because it is uber cool. Like it is like having AC when like having AC outside, sitting underneath one of those trees and sitting with some of the elders or some of the seniors that typically sit underneath that tree, and you making those connections are part of your service and is an important
yeah.
part of your service, because family in most cases is respected. And if that elder goes back and say, oh, I had a day hanging out with Alba and it was nice, like we just sat, because sometimes they're intimidated by the volunteers. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't speak this language, they want me to do something, I don't know who they are. Like there are a lot of things that go with having someone new in the community. So just being able to sit and mingle or hang out with the community in which you serve is part of your service, and it's huge.
Yeah, and I think like, you know, here we're so used to doing things alone, right? Like I think here in the US, like we depend on ourselves. And like we sometimes don't understand that like these communities depend so much on each other to live, right? Like our neighbor next door has cows and chickens, but like we don't have, you know, meat. So like if they're ever going to kill one of their cows or their goats or anything, like I want to be able to have good terms with them, because like I can buy things off of them. But my crop maybe made a lot more beans and rice than theirs did. So like they or might want to come and like, you know, so like those relationships and like building those relationships are so important to get anything done in your service. And so like, from obviously, yeah, it was hard for me to just be like, damn, like I'm sitting here for like hours having this conversation with people. But when I do want to have or start a project, they're like my resume kind of thing, or like my, you know, like my not resume, but like they validate and they like stand up for me, right? They're like, okay, yeah, like I think I was a great person, so I think we should work with her.
Right.
And so, and they've never seen me work. It was just like based on a more profound, more one-on-one individual conversation.
Yes.
Me talking about my family's immigration status, like, and that's the other thing. Like for me, it was really, really tough for me to be in country during our most recent, like our past election, because I was there from 2016 to 2018. So that was right when our current president was, well, you know, we're in that transition, but
Yes.
well, Donald Trump was president. So like for me, I have immigrant parents. And so like for me, it was really rough to be like somewhere else when I'd be like, I need to be with my parents. And so like even having those conversations, whether I thought my community was going to understand or not, so being able to build those relationships allowed me and make me feel comfortable enough to have those conversations with my community members, so that they can be like, no, things are going to be okay. Like, we have your back, like, like you. And so like that allowed me to build like a family that didn't make me feel so bad about like being there, as opposed to being back in the States with my family.
Right.
And so, yeah.
I think a lot of times we forget the impact everything that's happening at home does in fact have on us when we are abroad, because you have your family, your friends communicating, if they're sending packages, if you have access to the news to be able to hear what's happening and what's going on. When I was in service, 9/11 happened, and like I think the whole world like was impacted by that, and it was seen throughout that service as well. So some of the engagement or some of the questions, I guess how the various community, because you're still working, because you're working
24/7
a year. It's not like you turn off, okay, I'm not a Peace Corps volunteer at this time. You can't do that. Service is your service for that 2 years. But it is awesome to have community members who are supportive or who are willing to have some of those conversations, because that's part of this as well. And I definitely am grateful for my community, because a number of things that happened from 9/11 to some of the other things that were happening at that time, we were able to have conversations. So when this administration started, we were able to continue to have those conversations, and they were like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, remember we talked about, we talked about that and how this impacts and da-da-da-da. So the conversation, it was cool to be like, we had this conversation. Like, some of this stuff isn't new, even though it's more publicized, like in social media. So more people are being able to see what is actually happening here in the States. But how did you learn about Peace Corps?
So I remember there was someone who came to do a presentation at when I was a senior in high school. And so I knew I wanted to do something like that at some point in my life. And so I was like, well, I'm still too young to join now as a senior in high school. And my college used to have grad school fairs and job fairs all the time. So they would always come. And the funny thing is, like, we had the same recruiter for 5 years. And so like by the end of my senior year in college, she knew who I was. Like, she was like, Alba, like, this is the 4th year in a row that I see you, like, you should just do it. And then, but still, I was a sociology major. So like my ultimate goal was to be a social worker and to like get my master's in social work, but I got denied to grad school 3 times.
Where were you applying?
I was applying locally in LA, like UCLA, like USC, like those big schools. And I just kept getting denied, and rejected. And after I graduated college, I was working for my university for a year. And then a lot of my students, like my staff, had to attend all these grad school fairs and things like that. So like I would go with them. Again, I saw the same recruiter, and I told her, and she was like, look, Alba, if you do not put in your application at this point, I don't know, like, you're not going to do it anymore. And so literally like a couple of days after having that conversation with the recruiter, one of the parents comes in. I was working in residence life. One of the parents comes in to talk about like her student and the residence halls and stuff. And she was like, oh, like, I'm also like an alum of this college. And then we started talking about her career. And she was like, yeah, like I'm a college counselor. Well, I'm like a social worker, but I work at a college, at a high school, and I love my job. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I want to do. And so she's like, yeah, well, like I got rejected to grad school, and then I went to do Peace Corps for 2.5 years in Peace Corps Guatemala. And I was like, Lord, you are speaking to me. Thank you. You are shining your light. I am off. And literally that same day I went online and I applied.
Nice.
And I was like, I'm just going to do this. This is the time. let's just get it done. And I did. My original post was actually Jordan, Peace Corps Jordan.
Okay.
And that got shut down for safety purposes, you know.
Nice.
And so the recruiter from there was like, hey, you know, like we'd love, unfortunately we have to shut this program down, but we just opened up like 3 other programs in like Latin America and the Caribbean. So if you want me to keep your application on file, let me know. If not, we can just like terminate it and you're done. And I was like, actually, you know what? Keep my application on file. And I sent her a list. So I was like, can you send it out to like Costa Rica, Peru, and DR? And so I ended up hearing back, you know, and I was like, hey, you've been invited to serve for like DR. And I was like, yes.
Oh, that is like, that's sort of kind of my story. Like, that is so my story. So I Peace Corps volunteer at Bethune-Cookman. I was applying for Carnegie Mellon University for their International Peace and Conflict Resolutions program, and I was denied. It's the only program I wanted to attend, right? He basically said the same thing. You all talk to them, they're like, you need this, you need that, you need this. And I'm like, okay, what should I do? Talk to him. And he was like, why don't you just do Peace Corps? And I was like, Peace Corps? It was that.
Yeah, and I was very familiar with the program because, you know, I talked to the same recruiter year after year, and she would always tell me, and we would just sit and talk and just like all these conversations. And I just, for me, it was just really hard to imagine myself leaving my family. You know, I'm like a first generation college student. My parents being immigrants and me being the oldest, like
Right.
I've always been kind of like that person that's been like the translator, you know, like anything that they need, documents, like conversations they need to have with their employers, like anything, just like I am that person. And so like removing myself from like leaving my family was such a concept that I could just not get around, you know?
Okay.
And it was hard because my parents were completely against it. Like they didn't agree with me doing that until the day they dropped me off at the airport. Like I would not have a conversation about Peace Corps or paperwork or anything around them. They were like, well, I don't understand why you want to do it. Like it makes no sense. I can't believe we left a developing country and now you're telling me that you're purposely, like on purpose, you signed up to go through all these struggles, no electricity, no running water, like all these like mosquito illnesses, like all this stuff. You're purposely choosing to do that when we like busted our asses so you cannot have to know what those kinds of living conditions are. And so they just couldn't get their mind around it, which is understandable, you know, like I get it. And so like for me, it was more about the benefits and the perks that Peace Corps would bring for me after I was done with that. And so like that's how I had to have those conversations with them. And like I said, they were not for it until the day they dropped me off on the airport. And they were like, okay, it seems like at this point you're not going to change your mind. And because we are not people who give up, you are not coming back until you finish your service.
No, that's for you.
Yeah, they were like, we are not going to let you quit. They're like, if you call us saying that you want to leave, and we're like, no, you fought your parents against this, so you're staying. I was like, damn.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So the last question that I have for you is, what would you say to people who are interested in being or serving as a Peace Corps volunteer?
I would say just, so if you're really interested, just don't have any expectations of what you want it to be or what you want it to look like. And I don't know, I think just do it. Like, don't think about it too much. Because if you start thinking about all these different things, like you're just never going to do it. And reach out to talk to our PCVs, you know, and and definitely just do your work in just like do your own work on like what kind of stereotypes and things like you're bringing to mind and you're bringing with yourself, just so that like you don't create more hurt than actual help. These communities, you know, like with any sort of like expectations, stereotypes, you know, that white savior status that some of us might bring, you know, like that you're going to change the world, you're going to change someone's life, like you're going to change the whole community, like, you know, like just be realistic, you know? Like, so.
Yeah. I repeat everything that Alba said, and she actually said a piece of my closing. So if you are interested in Peace Corps, please check out the website, peacecorps.gov. So from leading health campaigns to boosting local entrepreneurship to teaching digital literacy, Peace Corps offers a range of opportunities for making a difference. If you need help finding the best fit, they have recruiters on the site. Please go check it out, peacecorps.gov. Thank you, Alba, for joining us today.
Thank you. This was great. I had a great time. It was nice to talk to, you know, to someone who gets it. And it's not like looking at their watch. Okay, it's almost over. She's almost going to shut up now.
I think I had the longest recording that I've had, I think, was 45 minutes. So I'm trying to be mindful and respectful. I know most of us loved and enjoyed our service. Like, it is truly the best job, the hardest job you'll like ever love. So thank you again for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side.
Great. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.